You know, they say things come in threes, ladies and gentlemen. Why do I bring that up? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because Friday, we had this guy who's apparently the world extreme champion, Sammy Nothing. Well, he said a whole lot more than nothing. Last night, we had this guy, Joe Starr, who, well, we saw what's left of him alongside the DHC. And, well, I kept thinking about all night and certainly going into today that famous song by this little band Soundgarden, Rusty Cage, because, well, Joe Starr was in a Rusty Cage and he didn't have Chris Cornell screaming, but he had B Insane and Jake Dvorak. How do I top all that? Well, this man here's last name is Horror. He's going to talk about everything related to our dear friends at LAW. We're going to talk a lot about this guy, La El Shaddai. Godric Sandwell still wants him one more time. I'll ask our guest about that. We'll get into maybe Excel Wrestling, Express Wrestling, and maybe even talk a little band called Alive by August. And boy, our guest, he may say, oh, I'm not that famous. I'm not that big a deal, but I hear he's open for bands like Avenged Sevenfold. I was thinking about them yesterday morning. I had them on Sirius XM. How about this band, My Chemical Romance? Yeah, everybody's heard of them. And how about this little band from New Jersey, one of the most influential bands of all time, and maybe even had a tie into wrestling once upon a time in WCW. Yes, I am talking about the Misfits. We will definitely talk about this band Alive by August. And we'll maybe even talk about the Indie Vision podcast with a guy from Ring Crew coming up as a guest in a few weeks on Sportswire Radio. Boy, this seems like it's going to be a long one here. We got a lot of people to talk about. But, since we are here in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the platform that our guest and certainly, well, a slew of companies and certainly I'll even say it, Lyle Shaddai, certainly helped build Sportswire Radio to the tune of over 1,500 plus subscribers. And boy, am I a happy man before I got on here because my cable broke and I had to fix it and I got it here because I am going to give our guest that introduction because I know that his cat may not be happy about it. I know that other people's cats might not be about it, but I know most importantly that our chat is waiting for it. And deep down, even if he doesn't want to admit it, he's waiting for it. And I got home so early to be in time because I never want to miss a Sportswire Radio show. And I want to make sure I give our guest, because after all, he's from the music world and he may even have heard of some of the bands I've interviewed, and maybe another band that I'm talking to next week. But forget about all of that. It is time, as I would say, to close the weekend out here in style on Sportswire Radio, the number one global radio station where all music and wrestling matters. And in the famous words of Def Leppard frontman Joe Elliott, yeah, I don't think that might be a little cheesy for our guest, but I'm still going to say his famous words. Let's get rocked, baby, and start this show in style. So with that, without further ado, here on the Sports Report, number one cable sports show, a man that is one of the hosts of the Indie Vision podcast, one of the premier shows covering all independent wrestlers across the globe, a man that is, of course, behind one of the most famous bands you might want to say in the Pennsylvania area, Alive by August, and a man that is at the forefront of the reigning, defending LAW champion, Mr. La El Shaddai. His name is simply put, Tommy. My friend, Tyler, what are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you doing, Tom?
Ask me after the show because I definitely reached for that one. I definitely reached a little extra there in the octaves. I reached a little bit there with my voice because I didn't know if I had it in me. But yeah, I think Ox McCoy got the picture and I ad libbed a little bit. But you're a fellow musician, you'll understand it. And it's great to meet you finally on screen. I mean, I obviously
Right.
seen you a lot here on Sportswire in the chat and seen a lot of you in certainly LAW and elsewhere. But it's great to finally meet you. And is the cat okay?
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, but during that whole introduction, I like had to bend down because she was like ready to jump up on my
Yeah.
lap. Like, stop it.
So I
Um,
guess your cat really is this nasty cat there, huh?
Everybody talks about my cat like she's terrible. She's not. She's not a terrible cat. She's just just a cat.
Well, let's hopefully the cat has more than 9 lives. But obviously, enough about the cat. I don't want to spend all night talking about your cat because I want to talk about you. We have a lot to get into here on Sportswire Radio in prime time when the brightest lights the biggest stage. I guess, I'm going to talk maybe where I left off last about you because there was this guy, Godric Sandwell, who came on here Tuesday night right after the aftermath of last Monday's historic LAW show. Big show, obviously. Lyle Shaddai was extremely successful, but Godric Sandwell was successful in his own right. And he kept chanting, one more shot. He kept chanting, one more shot, one more shot. And he was getting everybody to get into it. And I now want to give you that opportunity on behalf of La El Shaddai for those that are listening and watching in prime time on the brightest lights, the biggest stage, the platform that you and La El Shaddai and LAW most certainly helped build Sportswire Radio. Should Godric Sandwell get that one more shot?
Well, Godric Sandwell, he's a awesome competitor.
He is.
He's definitely a top main event guy. No, and I'll tell you why.
Tell me why. I'd love to know.
Because there are literally 20 to 40 other people in LAW who deserve a shot before Godric gets to bore the crowd again with another shot and another loss.
So you feel that this is an interesting point because it's cease and desist. It was supposed to have been his moment. It was supposed to have been everything was set up for Godric. The match couldn't change. It could change hands on outside interference, and it was a traditional wrestling match. Everything was set up for Godric to win last month, but yet Godric came up short, and basically what I had said, and even some others here, like certainly Mr. Michael McMoney and others that came on there, Courtney Wood, obviously, that it's not yet, and it seems like for you, anytime soon, it's not yet, and right now that answer is no.
Right. It's going to be a resounding no for a while.
Okay.
Godric needs to start from the back of the line all over again, and I will defend this up and down. Sure. If it were anybody else that Godric was going up against, a mere human, Godric probably would have got the win.
Sure.
What he doesn't understand is that you're not dealing with a human being.
Yeah, that's a fair point. Very fair point. So I guess then what he did coming back down 2-1 in the battle on the border, LAW scramble match, being behind, getting a big victory for LAW on Memorial Day to close out historic Memorial Day weekend and really put LAW into what I think is going to be its best phase yet. That doesn't matter. And what he did for LAW and getting a huge victory for the company, that doesn't mean anything then.
Well, no, sure, it matters. I mean, it brings him back up that line a little bit. But in all fairness, he needed to go to the back of the line. He had his opportunity. He lost. He lost the match. So now there are other people that deserve a title shot that are in front of him at the moment.
Sure, and that's definitely understandable. I definitely think that that's certainly something that, again, Godric is going to have to continue to convince people on. And Godric will be back here in 3 weeks. He'll be here 3 weeks from today, and I'm sure he'll paint a different picture. So I guess then, you made a great point, though, which I'll give you, that there is a wide roster we have here in LAW. There's a lot of talent that would certainly maybe feel that they deserve that chance to step in the ring with Lyle Shaddai. And, obviously, I don't know why some would say so. Of that big roster that we have, who do you think should be at the top of the list then from your vantage point?
I mean, that's a good question. As much as I hate the kid, Dave Jameson comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
He's another one that I feel like is kind of earning his keep. There's also, I'm sure Robert Ketchum would love a rematch.
And that's obviously somebody what we're definitely hoping we see back in LAW and in the ring soon. That's a good name. A lot of people have him to mind. I mean, that's somebody else. I mean,
I'd like to see title for title. Maybe have Pepper Pride against.
I mean, that's kind of how we got into this predicament, though, in the first place. I mean, I don't know if Pepper Pride would want to sign up for that. I mean, certainly, objectively speaking, for you, I'm sure happy, which we'll talk about later on the Indie Vision podcast. She is the Indie Vision champion, but I don't know if for Pepper's sake that's a good idea. You might think that's great for Mr. Shaddai, but I don't know if I'd quite want to go down that road just yet. Maybe another time, but. I think Dave Jameson's an interesting name you brought up. He's obviously wrestling the artist formerly known as Fuego del Sol, KJ Orso here, coming up in 12 days. We're going to definitely talk a lot about that. He's a name that's made a lot of waves right now across pretty much everywhere. And that is an interesting name. I mean, I think I might want to see that. That might be something I might want to keep in mind.
Oh, there you go. I'd love to see somebody spit water on that fire.
And okay.
Shaddai.
What about the man that was supposed to have been a part of originally that elimination triple threat match and Hype Man Dan Lasers? Isn't that interesting guy? We talked a lot about him. Is that somebody, maybe not today, but down the road, could be a potential candidate to challenge Lyle Shaddai? Is that a name you might want to see out there?
He's a guy who's just come in to LCW, and from what I've seen, he's extremely talented. So yeah, probably down the line. I'd like, my thing is, I like to see people get on a streak and get that confidence, just so Shaddai can knock them back down again. That's just my personal.
I might be not poking you with these because I know El Shaddai's out there and I'm not that dumb, but I know Courtney's in the chat. I almost can say it with certainty, and I'm gonna say that for sure one name you wouldn't want to see Lyle Shaddai against is Wyatt Black.
Listen, that kid Wyatt Black, he's got a lot of.
Hey, that was
he's got a lot of talent for somebody so young. I'll give him that. But as far as against El Shaddai, he's not going to be any different either. I'm sorry.
Well, I got a name, and I'll move off this topic because there's a lot to talk about. I really have a lot to get into with you. But, there's a guy that, he certainly had a battle with somebody in the vein of Lyle Shaddai, not maybe quite as extreme or bloody, and that's Daniel Tafua. Obviously, I'm talking about his battle with the Soul Taker, who, by the way, is wrestling Godric Sandwell, obviously, coming up here on June the 13th, which we'll talk about later on for Excel Wrestling. But what about Daniel Tafua? I mean, that's a guy that, he might be able to put up a fight. I mean, he earned some respect in his battle with Soul Taker. He earned a lot of respect from people in that fatal four-way match for the Indie Vision Championship. What about a name like Daniel Tafua, maybe?
I mean, I feel like he would definitely put up a fight. Being Polynesian, you can't hit the guy in the head. But
he's got some spark. I think a lot of people, I've known him for a while. I think he opened some eyes up a little bit. He's got some fight. He's got some heart. A guy that's already stepped in there with somebody. Again, a peer of La El Shaddai's. Again, not as extreme, not as bloody, certainly, but the Soul Taker just tag team with a man I interviewed personally, Savio Vega. So to have that on your resume and to be right there with him, maybe that's a name somebody might want to see, or maybe LAW fans would want to see that. So there's definitely some possibilities out there, and I guess time will certainly tell.
Sure. I just don't want anybody to get too overconfident and think that they have a chance. That's all I'm asking. Like, you can go in there, you can put on a good match, get your reels out there, get your, you know what I mean, get other companies looking at you, but you're gonna end up with a loss in the end, dude. Like,
so then, why would Godric want to smoke one more time? Godric was just, he was just almost like Tom Cruise on Oprah at the end of Tuesday's show. He was jumping up and down, screaming that he wanted this, and that this is basically, he knows what he's getting into. It was just, he was just going up and down. I've never seen Godric like this. And so, after what you're telling me right now, why would anybody, especially Godric, want to go through that again?
Well, one thing I'll always give Godric, as watching him, come up through Express and also LAW, the guy's fearless. You know what I mean? He ain't got a fear in the world. He'll take on whoever. He's very bold. He's very brave. Brave only gets you so far, man.
Yeah, no, but that's somebody that's thinking not with their head, but rather than their heart. And we know what happened there, that Godric, he didn't win. And there is that thing that I have spoke about here in the platform, and he hasn't learned how to win yet. Yes, he's got the Three Rivers Championship. I'll get to that, but it's not the world title. And that he's not won yet. And sometimes it takes time. If you're a sports fan, we've talked about the analogies of different teams here that haven't won the big one. And Godric right now is in that category. I've seen him in different places, and, it takes time, and it may not be his time at the moment from what you're telling me.
No, and I have no doubt at some point that Godric will be that man at the top of the mountain.
But not today. And you know what? That could certainly be a topic, but I'm going to talk about him later on here for sure. Let me ask you this question. I do want to stay on the topic of La El Shaddai. What makes La El Shaddai the man he is on top of it? I want to ask you, because I've heard from other people, and I've seen some of the footage. We've played it. I've watched the FUTVs. Shout out to Mary Bonaham, who's put some stuff on Facebook. You can catch some different stuff in the past. She's got a great page. He's there, obviously, at 325 7th Street, the Richardson Building in beautiful Parkersburg, West Virginia. But from you and our audience here, talk to me about what makes La El Shaddai the LAW champion.
Okay, first of all, the way I see it, I am the LAW champion.
I know, that's why I did that. I know.
It was something that, like, okay, I use some.
Yes, we've seen this stuff. We've talked about it here.
Yeah, a lot of people that are not going to believe me how Shaddai came to be. Okay, I get that. Most of you don't believe in voodoo and magic and stuff. But it is what it is. He's not a human. With him, winning the championship is because it's an unfair advantage. He's not human.
No.
Okay? The people he's taking on are human. My body can't do it anymore. There was a time where I was a wrestler. Yep. My body can't do it anymore. But my mind still can. So, in my mind, I put together the perfect specimen who could finally win me that heavyweight title that I never got to win.
Interesting. It's basically your brains that have led him to the top. So really, what you say is that that's what makes you the champion.
Yes.
So basically, your brains, your skills from being an in-ring competitor, your skills from your knowledge in this sport, which you have an immense amount of knowledge. I would certainly be the first to say that, but what you've learned being an in-ring competitor and your skills up here, that's what La El Shaddai has used to be on top, to stay on top, and that's why, by proxy, you're on top.
Yeah, just one thing I didn't foresee is over time, now Shaddai is learning to use the body that he's taken over. So not only is he an extraordinary wrestler, But now he's starting to gain a lot of consciousness. He's talking, he's evolving. And I didn't foresee that. And hopefully he's not actually watching this, because if he is,
Well, what happened? I mean, obviously we'll see the footage, the full footage of the aftermath. But what happened with you and him at cease and desist?
I could not make it. I had a prior engagement. So, wait, we're talking about. Okay, my bad. I thought we were talking about the last show. I'm sorry.
No, we're talking about cease and desist because obviously that's what was a big topic here on the platform. Aftermath, yeah, that's a separate entity. We know what happened there, but what happened between you and him and cease and desist? That's during Godrick's match, and after that, what happened there?
So all I could tell was something started to finally evolve with Shaddai. And he started to become more conscious of his ability and also his victory. Normally, I had to, as you mostly saw, I had to draw him out of the ring by using his vial of blood.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly, he realized what was happening and let go. So he comes out, and I had already grabbed the belt from the referee, and I have it, and suddenly he kind of just ripped it out of my hands. And at that point I realized something that I didn't foresee was that
but that was the first you and him had this dynamic. That's why it was a big topic. Courtney mentioned it. It was brought up with McMoney. I'm pretty sure he brought it up. So that was a big issue last month, and that's why I was curious. That's all in the past now, or is that something there to that?
It is. Like I said, I couldn't arrive at Aftermath, but that wasn't any kind of...
Yeah, Aftermath, listen, we saw what La El Shaddai did. What he did there.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, people have seen the footage of what happened with McMoney. People have seen what happened. Matt Vengeance couldn't continue. I mean, so that's why, I got that. I got what La El Shaddai is an in-ring competitor. I got the whole point of what you're saying is, Godrick Sandwell, you're the back of the line. I got that. Anybody else that might want to step up, whether it's a hype man, Dan Lasers, whether it's a Daniel Tafua, whether it's even a Dave Jameson, you have your work cut out for you. But you and him, everything's good. Just want to make sure.
Everything's good. It's just now that he has come to this point where he's a little more aware, I do try to give him a little more say.
Mm-hmm.
So now, it makes things a little interesting, because now I have another mind helping me with the whole situation. So that part's nice. Listen, I don't want to say anything that's going to upset Guy. So I mean,
I would say, but you guys are good. Just want to make sure, because we're going to move on here, but I just want to make sure you and him are good. Everything's on even keel. You're on the same page. The plan's continuing. You're the champion. La El Shaddai's executing. We've seen the group grow in numbers. Everything's going according to plan still. Just making sure.
Absolutely, especially everything with Shadow and them resurrecting him. That was totally part of the plan.
Well, I'll tell you what. I mean, there's no question that anybody that's out there does have their work cut out for them. And, Godrick Sandwell was defiant about it. He was defiant one more time, and he got Godrick chants going. And I don't know if the council is going to want Godrick to get that shot, but I also think there are some other names that could get that opportunity. But if you are here right now, before I move on, certainly please go out there, follow LAW, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. You can watch some of the previous FUTV episodes. There will be more that'll be released in the future. Trust me. Check out LAW's YouTube page. You can see what LAW is definitely a company here that we're going to continue to talk about on Sportswire Radio till, well, I can no longer talk. And I see a lot of people here in the chat, and I promise I'll get to you. And maybe some of those names, or maybe even trying to make a case for a shot at Lyle Shaddai, or maybe a shot at Tommy Hara, you might want to say. But I did want to spend a few minutes back on something related to LAW, which you did mention Pepper Pride, and I've asked everybody about that. I've certainly asked McMoney about that. I've asked Courtney when she was here, and Timothy Titan, certainly when he was here. Timothy Titan will be back here in your chair next Monday night, but something tells me that I think you and him won't be in the same room like McMoney and him in previous shows, but we won't go down that road. But I was curious, though, from your vantage point, what does it mean to you to see Pepper Pride as the first Indie Division champion?
I'm actually like grateful that we have taken Indie Division to the point where we have something like that, where we have an Indie Division title. When we decided on who would be in that match, we did it so where like no matter who won that match, we were going to be proud of who was going to be the winner. So
sure.
when Pepper came out as the winner, in all honesty, I was elated. I couldn't ask for a better representative, I think. But then again, there were 3 other competitors in that match who also would have been just as good. So I'm absolutely happy with. There you go. There it is.
I always like to put the picture up because I think it's a great picture. I think that Pepper, and again, they all could have been great candidates. Mickey Knuckles, I know very well from POR. I know Mickey Knuckles from people that come on the platform like Jesse Daniels and Jimmy Controversy, certainly, Tarzan Durant. So I know Mickey Knuckles very well. And obviously the Soul Taker, No Souls Matter. And then you had Daniel Tafu, certainly made a great case. But I think Pepper Pride looks like a champion. Pepper Pride is exactly the prototype of an up-and-coming champion. She's just phenomenal right now in her work. I say it all the time. She's a protege of this guy, Rhino, that came on the platform. She's a good friend of a guy I know very well, James Fury, and she was with the Boogeyman. Yeah, definitely. He's going to come to get you if you don't support Pepper Pride. And, she's definitely really going to be going places very, very soon. And I think that she's the prototype first champion. And you always remember the first. And I don't think you could have got a better first champion for the Indie Division Championship to be represented by Pepper Pride.
No, but again, like I would have been just as happy if it were Soul Taker, Tafua, or
I would have been great. I mean, listen, Mickey Knuckles. I mean, what she's done. I mean, she has a lot of respect in the world. Daniel Tafua, I mean, listen, what he has done going toe-to-toe with the Soul Taker, he's earned a lot of respect. And the Soul Taker's the Soul Taker. So, they all would have been great candidates to hold the championship, but somebody has to win. And I think Pepper is definitely that champion. And you can definitely see more of Pepper. And, let's talk about the Indie Division podcast for a few minutes. I'll come back to LAW. There's a lot of people that want to talk to you, but I really enjoy the podcast. First of all, let me tell you why I enjoy the podcast, because aside from the fact you still want me on this podcast, which I'm not going to draw you a single viewer, what I enjoy is you can ask questions about, are you smarter than a 5th grader? You can talk from all of your perspectives about being in the wrestling world. I don't have that perspective. I have my wacky intros, which your cat hates, and others probably say, please get it over with already. It's just Sportzwire is different. To me, Sportzwire is like going to a concert. You, Timothy, and Kevin from Ring Crew, by the way, I'm going to break it now, is going to be here June 26th, 10 o'clock Eastern time. Be there or be square. But you guys have really, I think, such a unique perspective that's kind of missing in podcasts, because you guys can talk about your experiences inside the ring, outside the ring, and talk with these different wrestlers. And I think really provide a great perspective. And I want to talk to you about it. And let's certainly get some of our audience to hit that sub button for our friends here, and especially for the Indie Division podcast. And just talk to me about, well, how do you like doing it so far?
You know what? It was kind of like a thing where we thought, hey, let's do this for fun. And we really enjoyed doing it. And then once we started doing it and it started like getting a little bit of traction, and this was probably like 2 years ago, me and Kevin from Ring Crew were doing this with another friend who was actually a part of it. And we have some interviews that are like earlier on, but, we started doing it. We were like, we have some fun with this, but it was hard to get people to actually come on at first. Like we were asking people like, hey, would you like to do it? And they'd say, yeah. And then they'd kind of be like, like, what day you want to come on? I don't know. Like, so it kind of like fell apart. And then we were like, we were talking to Timmy and he wanted to do this Money Mark Media thing. And he was talking about doing a podcast. I was like, you know what? why don't you come on with us? And you know what I mean? Let's see what kind of what kind of magic we can make all together and see if it works well. And fun fact, he didn't even tell us he was going to do that. Are you smarter than a fifth grader segment? He just did it on the first show, and we were like, wow, that was actually really funny.
Yeah, I mean, it was really, it's interesting to hear, your different guests talk about it. Obviously, Godric's here in the chat, and that was a memorable segment. Dave Jameson, I mean, it's so fascinating to hear different people talk about, those, answers to questions. I mean, listen, and you should keep it fun because I feel like with me, there's like every day I feel pressure being on Sportswire. I mean, people like, are you on? Like, when are you coming on? And people like, who's coming on? Like, at least you guys, I feel like it is like a concert where it's almost like, okay, I got to go on and, the pressure's there. I mean, but at least you keep it fun. And I mean, I think what I'm really excited about, because Timmy talked about this last weekend, is that you guys have a wealth of contacts and a wealth of information in the Pittsburgh wrestling scene. And I think that that's really where we're going to see some really good guests upcoming. And it's a scene that's got a lot of heritage, a lot of history. And I'm really looking forward to maybe some of those future shows coming up with maybe some of those names we'll get a chance to know on this platform.
Yeah, definitely. I don't want to talk too much about who we have coming up because it's all a matter of
don't tell us who, but don't tell us who.
But I can tell you that we're going to have some very surprise guests that people just didn't expect to do this kind of thing.
Well, I mean, I will say that because he's out there, Mr. Omen Black was supposed to come on the show. I don't know if you guys have done it yet with him, but you should definitely bring him on. I can promise you that if you do run out of guests, there's hundreds of guests that I could certainly give to you and say, yeah, you can have them on your show because they were just here. So maybe they'll want to talk, and maybe they'll enjoy the questions more on your platform. Maybe they'll just not want to come on sports, or maybe everybody in the chat that's here, some of the rest, they won't want to come on here anymore. They'll just come onto the Indie Vision podcast, and I'll just step aside. I'll hit exit stage left, and you guys take over.
Hey, listen, we want to talk to everybody and anybody.
No, you shouldn't. I would have to think, certainly since you've had on Dave Jameson, you've had on Jace Carr, you've had on Broheem, I think, Godric Samuel. You do make a point about maybe Godric should, instead of focusing on the LAW championship, all four of those individuals can have a number one contendership match for the Indie Vision title instead. So maybe you're onto something.
That might be his better bet.
You know what? That's a good point, guys.
He also might want to get better at Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Because he didn't do that great.
Well, you know what?
He's supposed to be so educated,
Well, that's why you'll have him back on next, and he'll do great. He'll do the best score he's ever done. But
hopefully so.
But if you are here right now, do me a favor. Hit the sub button for the Indie Vision Network. I know maybe you're tired of Sportswire. You want to go somewhere else where it's more intelligent interviewers, people that have been in the wrestling world. They've been in the ring. They know what goes on behind the scenes. They're a lot more intelligent, a lot more well-spoken, a lot better looking. This is the place you want to go. So you can stop coming out. It's a joke. We're only kidding. We're only kidding. But hit the sub button for the Indie Vision Network because I really enjoyed the podcast, but I really have enjoyed them. I've got a chance to watch all four of these episodes, and I don't say it too often. I don't endorse like other people's podcast often because, I have, I do it here, but I really believe in what you guys are doing. And, you guys come on here all the time. Timmy's here next Monday, and we got Kevin from Ring Crew. I mean, Kevin from Ring Crew. What kind of conversation is that going to be like?
You're going to learn a lot about putting a ring up.
Which I should learn too, because there's a lot of wrestlers that like to put me through a ring and say, please go out there and help. But yeah, that'll be a fun. And I like the photo, by the way. I like the photo of you guys. Yeah, it was a good photo. It was definitely a good photo. But all right, you know what? There's a lot to talk about, but I want to get to the chat. I've been here a while, and I feel like it's time to get to the people. They want to talk to you. Let me do that here. Let me bring you up to the big screen because you deserve that. And let me get to everybody here one by one. So let's pull them up here. There we go. I'm surprised. Usually it's Zilla that's first, but it's Mr. Ox McCoy, who is almost like your counterparts from the IMF. Obviously, LAW and IMF, a lot of similarities there. And they're in Iowa. You guys are in West Virginia, beautiful Parkersburg. They're in Palo. And he would like to say hi, and Zilla wasn't even here. I mean, he's actually one of the guys that you want to laugh. He's one of the guys that messages me. It was Thursday. He said, "Hey, where are you?" And I said, "Well, my throat had hurted. I had a guest. It was a pro wrestler, and he bailed, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm watching the New York Knicks in basketball. By the time I come on, no one will tune in." He's like, you got to be on. I'm like, I'm going to be on tomorrow. Don't you worry. And he was like, where's my Sportswire? So he's one of the guys that makes sure I'm on every night, though. But speaking of people, the man that obviously was retired by Day Jamison, so he can focus on Money Mark Media and what's going to happen here on June the 13th, Mr. Timothy Tite. He's been waiting for this one. He's been waiting.
Yeah,
well,
that's right. That's my heterosexual life mate there.
Well, that's obviously why I'm going to say, hey, Happy Pride Month, everybody. It is. It's Pride Month. Happy Pride Month. But go to sleep, Tommy. Well, I don't think he's sleeping.
Whatever.
Yeah, I don't think he's sleeping. Stay in the chat. He's here next Monday. Tommy Horror kicks puppies. That's not true. That's not true.
I mean,
that's not true.
But there's been times, I wouldn't say they were on purpose or even completely on purpose.
Well, we are in prime time, and we have had some big names on here, so I'm going to say you don't kick puppies. And next question.
Yeah, fair enough.
Gary Wolf was here 2 weeks ago, and I have the man that was a part of this band called Grand Funk Railroad next Tuesday, Mark Farner. So we're going to say, yeah, I have Mark Farner. You can say it. It's okay. You can say it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's a big deal to have Mark Farner. He doesn't do interviews very often, and he actually thinks I'm worthy. So it's a big deal. So that's cool. Yeah, last night's show was very short. It's probably one of the shortest shows I've done in years. But I don't know if I'm going to go 3 hours. My voice, I don't know if I can hold 3 hours up, but we'll do an hour and a half, 2 hours. We'll see where the chat takes us here. But,
actually, I got to go, man. Like, no.
We had a show, like I said, my guest was literally like in a cage. It reminded me of Soundgarden, Rusty Cage, like this guy, Joe Starr, and he was held captive, almost like what Godric Samuel could be with Shadow and La El Shaddai if he wants one more shot. And, it's a long story. Check it out on my Instagram and Facebook. But thank you, Ox, for reminding us. But obviously, Godric is here. I'll get to his comments. Salutations to all tonight, and don't tempt me with getting hands on Shaddai one more time. Well, you basically were talked about for like 20 minutes, so we'll move on here. You are an incredible musician. I'm going to get to that because I'm very excited about that. You have quite a journey in the music business, and you're the second guest I've had on in 3 days. I had a guy, Sammy Nothing, who plays in a band Technivore. He does kind of almost like you, but more noise bass, and he's had a little bit of success, not to the degree you've had, but it's my second guy that's a musician that's been in the wrestling world, and I always think that's fascinating. Brody is a queen, you shush.
That's my cat.
I know that. That's why I said
okay.
Oh, I know by now. Your cat's been brought up like a bunch of times in Sportswire. I mean, to me, it's like LAW and IMF are here like the most, so that's why I know already.
My cat's more older than I am. This is...
What? No, you got to listen. No. I disagree with that. You got a lot of people here watching right now tonight. So no, I disagree with that. But we do appreciate the cats tuning in. But Daniel Tafua is here. Tafua, and he's probably putting this comment in while his background's in red. Just saying. But there you go. What's up? That's I guess a what's up. Terry said hi. There you go. It's always nice to say hi. And Courtney, who, by the way, has always got something to say. And, she probably liked what you said about Wyatt Black. That definitely.
Not my name, Courtney.
Yeah, well,
man.
Well, I heard something pretty big that Courtney's working on, but I'm not saying anything about it live. But when it comes out, it'll be pretty big. It'll be a first of something. But I'm going to say I know nothing about it because I don't want to get the Wyatt Black treatment. Thank you, Ox. Yes, I did ad-lib on the intro. Speaking of people, by the way, that I've noticed are making their way back, and they're going to have a match also with Daniel Tafua. That is Mr. Andrew Lovelace and Max Hammer, and they have a handicap match coming up with Daniel Tafua. And I guess we'll maybe see more of Peanut Butter and Jealous upcoming. Maybe it's an LAW, but maybe certainly an Express and XL Wrestling. Let's maybe talk about them for a few minutes.
I want to see more of PB&J. I'm not going to lie. That's
they have a reel on Facebook that went viral right there. They're finished, which I'm not going to say what the name is here because, like I said, we want Grand Funk Railroad's Mark Farner to stay coming on Sportswire, but let's just say their finishing move, the name of it, well, it's definitely something people will remember
for sure. For sure.
But they're back together, and it certainly could mean more success for them, and maybe get them into the front of the tag division. Obviously, Express and Excel Wrestling are really crowded, and I'm going to talk about Excel Wrestling in a few minutes. I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about a lot of things here tonight with you. And yes, hello to Andrew. Andrew, of course, is our favorite DJ. He famously played a DJ set on Sportswire last year. Want to say hello to my friend, Princess JD. No, Justin Parsley's not here, but she says hello. Thank you for tuning in. And Godric would like to say the hype man is one of the better cats at LAW. Getting cats, but right now, being one of the better cats, it's not going to get him to the front of the line against La El Shaddai. That's for sure. I'll move on.
I mean,
Dan Laser deserves a title match, but does he deserve a world title match? I don't know.
Maybe for the Indivision title.
I was going to be my next point. That Indie, and that's why that Indivision Championship is so invaluable. It's so important because it does give people a shot at something that maybe it gets them to the next level. We know what Pepper is going to do with that championship, but then you think about names like a hype man, Dan Laser. Maybe Daniel Tafua goes back and competes for that. Godric Samuel, you mentioned. I mean, there's a lot of people that could win, and that's an important title now.
Yeah, well, again, he'll have better luck trying to win that title than.
Well, I'll tell you who Courtney would not like to see compete for the Indivision Championship. That's Wyatt Black. But she wants Wyatt Black to be. No, that would be, I'm going to answer this for you. You can actually laugh at this. Maybe even somewhere the champion will laugh at this. That would be like animal cruelty. If you fed Wyatt Black to
Did you just
that would be animal cruelty.
Animal cruelty?
That would be animal cruelty. We cannot condone that here in sports. After my guest yesterday was basically held captive in a cage and was tased and beat up, we can't condone actions like that. So no, thank you for that though, Courtney. We appreciate it.
Unpopular opinion though, but when it comes to 90s singers, I think Chris Cornell has the greatest voice of all of them. So
I think, I'm going to say something because I remember when unfortunately Chris Cornell died. I think Chris Cornell, even though I wasn't the biggest Soundgarden Audio Slave fan, admittedly, I think Chris Cornell has one of the greatest voices in rock, period. I mean, just to go off the top of him, with his voice, what he was able to do, you think about his own solo work, you think about Audio Slave, Soundgarden, you think about was it Mother Love Bone? I think it was. I mean, he had some, like, his voice, his range. I mean, I think he was just one of the greatest, period. I mean, he just was just in a whole another world there. And Andrews is overconfident his middle name. I didn't know that, but now I know. Speaking of people, the man that was holding my guest captive yesterday, Mr. Jake Dvorak, the unholy Jake Dvorak, and he is a double champion. He is the All Wrestling Matters Hardcore Champion, the NEW Northeast Champion. He'll certainly be tuned in tomorrow night to my guest, Mr. D. Savage, who is from 814 and Battlefield Pro Wrestling, which is also in the state of Pennsylvania. He'll be here at 8 o'clock Eastern time. But you got a lot more comments, and I'm not going to ask you other things right now. Are you afraid, Mr. Horror, that the puppet you have, that I can turn against you and I can set shade? That's his comment to you.
Are you high?
Maybe.
Not you, Tafua.
No, I'm not. I don't smoke, but maybe Tafua.
That's what I didn't think so, Tom. I thought you're a musician like me, and everybody knows musicians don't do drugs.
I'm technically not a musician, but I thought I put my sound box out for the hee hee ha ha. But yeah, I'm not high, but maybe Tafua is. Yeah, maybe Tafua.
Yeah. I'm thinking he is saying shit like that, stuff like that. Damn it.
You can say it. That you can say on you. You're all right.
All right. Fair enough.
Word, I'm a little bit. You can say the S-bomb. Yeah, Zilla's here. She comes in right a few minutes afterwards. Daniel Tafua, who also tried to set Godric Sandwell free with the devil in the blue coat, but that didn't really work out for Godric, by the way. I mean, I will remind Mr. Tafua that he did give Godric a pep talk, and it didn't work out for him right before cease and desist. Just saying.
Wow, yeah, you really showed me there, pal.
Yeah, that's certainly, There you go. I don't care what it takes. La El Shaddai will fall by my hand. You just don't understand why yet. It was emotional. People talked to me when Godric was here and what they saw. And I had people talk to me. We're in LAW, but this wasn't LAW people that messaged me and said, Godric, I was really taken back by the way he was so emphatic about wanting a match with La El Shaddai, and he really turned some heads there. But we'll move on.
Nobody cares.
Well, I do care about LAW, and I want people to hit the sub button for LAW. Please hit the sub button for LAW, and thank you. I believe this is maybe Kevin from Ring Crew, Thomas.
It is. It's the only person in the world that ever calls me Thomas.
Well, there's Thomas, and my name's Tom, but Thomas, I don't get called by that. Sandwell, there you go. Back of the line with you. There you go. So you make a very good point. Tommy Hart,
like PB&J.
They were, you know what? I gotta say this: when they came on here, obviously, being, with Express Wrestling, they were memorable on here. They definitely were memorable, and I'm sure they'll be back on one of these days. And they are definitely an interesting team, and they could certainly be a team I would want to watch out for. And Daniel Tafua, by the way, has got his work cut out for him. I mean, the odds are against him. Literally, they're against him coming up on June 13th. So, I mean,
you got all of these guys who are veteran wrestlers falling short to La El Shaddai, and some rookie's going to sit there and go, I can take it. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Hype Man Dan Lasers, Daniel Tafua. I mean, these are, that's why, this is why La El Shaddai could reign supreme for years and years. Tommy Hart may be a real heel, but he's been a great friend. He is definitely a great friend. I have something for him in a little while, but you have a lot more comments, as I suspect. Something I will always grant Mr. Horror, your brain, his bloodthirst, dangerous combination.
Don't patronize me, Godric.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. Lawless, Mr. Loveless, pleasure as always. Get in line. There isn't technically technically you're not wrong because there is no number one contender. So technically you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all. And Indie Vision definitely has it right. And if you're here on Sportswire Radio, we are here with the one and only Mr. Tommy Horror. He is one of the hosts of the Indie Vision podcast. He is also the man behind the band Alive by August. We're going to talk about that in a little while. Also, he's with Excel Wrestling, Express Wrestling. The man has a wealth of knowledge in this sport. He was pretty good in his own right in the ring, and he's here with us outside the ring right now. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice, figuratively and literally, with all music and wrestling matters. I certainly agree with that, and it's hammer time, baby. And I don't think you can touch this comment because he certainly wants Godric Sandwell to the back of the line. There you go, yo sweetness.
My boys.
Every time I see Max Hammer on here, I gotta break out MC Hammer references.
Yeah. PB&J, if you guys, want to donate to the new religion, just hit me up.
Well, we'll have to find out if that's a thing. I mean, there's certainly, you guys have grown in members, and then me. Yep, June 26th. There you go. Somebody knew the plug.
Guys, what's the greatest nation in the world? It's donation.
That I do know. I will be in any room Tommy is in. You did talk about that. There you go.
That's
Mr. Strong, also a pleasure. Get in line. Okay. Yep. Timmy took the photo. There you go. That's a great shot from. Yeah, it was a great photo. I agree. There she is. There's Zilla. How you doing, Zilla? Good to see you, Zilla. There you go. Zilla. Hello. Yep. Hello to Ox. Thank you, Princess. And hello. And if you're here, as I say, there's a lot of people here tonight. Hit the sub button for the Indie Vision Network. Let's get their numbers up. So that way they'll come up here. Hello to Jake. Yes, thank you, Jake. And also from we got that in. Got that. Hello to Courtney. Hello to everybody. And hello, Tommy. Thank you. Yep. There you are.
Hey, I haven't heard in a minute. What's going on, bro?
Well, tell him, tell him you're doing well. Tell him you're here and you're having a good time, hopefully.
Having a great time, Brock.
I'm glad to hear. If you want to know who will be on, you'll have to tune into Indie Vision. Exactly, and hit the sub button, because if you hit the sub button, you'll know the notifications so when they go on. Simple as 1, 2, 3. And she would love for him to be on. Yeah, that'd be great. All right, we'll go from Kevin here. We have been busy setting up guests. We already have 3 next full episodes planned, then bringing back exclusive. And Tom, you're amazing. Those mutton chops put us all to shame. I don't know about that, but certainly I appreciate the kind words.
Hey, get the focus back on me here. Huh?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. We don't want to do that. Speaking of people, by the way, who have their own podcast, the Underground OG, Mr. Dark Chronicles, podcaster. He has the Dark Chronicles, and he is a little different, kind of similar but different. He watches matches and gets the person that wrestled in the match to talk about it. Kind of a really cool thing. And he'd be a great guest one day for you because he's a great talker, wealth of information, been around a long time, hell of a guy.
Kevin Spring Crew, write that down. Also, the Tim Turn, write that down. Write that name down.
I could give you like 150 guests. I told you already. I mean, for me, that's why keep it fun, because for me, there's pressure. I literally feel like I'm backstage, like, all right, they're knocking on the door, like, who's coming on? I'm like, all right. Who's coming on? I'm gonna be on. Don't you worry. Yes, don't you worry. But yep, hello, and can you get an arm drag? I don't think.
Okay, so there's a story behind that. Okay,
all right, tell me.
When I first started training for wrestling, Brock was the one who was helping a lot with my training.
Okay.
And when we were going through stuff, one of the things we started doing was an arm drag. And I looked at him after taking one, and I was like, that was fun. Can we do it again? And again, and again, and again. So that's why, yeah.
Well, that's like, in Spinal Tap, they can it go to 11, and they went to 11. Brock, if you want to be put in the bloody fit by Tommy's bodyguard, you can try. Yeah, I'm going to take it back as a no. Daniel Tafua says peanut butter and jealous will fall by me. Tafua! 2-1-1.
That's got a lot of confidence. I'll give him that.
2-1-1 though. Last I checked, it's long odds.
Yeah, well.
I'm sorry, but that is hilarious. That is definitely Daniel Tua. It'll be your day of reckoning when you face peanut butter and jealous. Yep.
For all the people watching, what he means by Hawk Tua.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, let's not go there, but we know what we're talking about. Tom, yeah, you explained it. There you go. Who else? You got a lot of comments here. Max, this is a different and more powerful Tafu. The Mighty Liga is meditated my mind. You would let, yeah, and he's not high, by the way. At least he's not high. That's okay. That's good. It reminds me of the Afro Man song. I got high, and he didn't get high, but that's like. Because I got high, and I remember like people played that song, and then it was a one-hit wonder. Speaking of people, and the man that I did mention, by the way, who I hope will, it's his platform, and maybe he'll go into your platform, and then he'll just stay there. No, I'm only kidding. It's Mr. Omen Black. It's his platform, and I think he really wants to go on your show. I don't know if it'll happen yet, but he is here. He's the IMF champion and the counterpart of Mr. Lyle Shaddai, and always good to see Mr. Omen. Mr. McCoy, good to see you again. Mr. Horror, pray to whatever unhearing deity that devil in the blue coat returns. He's here in 21 days, so I'll figure it out here. And yes, hello there. I think he's saying buongiorno is hello. I gotta say, Max Hammer, definitely his best comment ever on Sportswire.
I'm too legit to quit. That's it. I quit. I'm out.
No, definitely, please, we can't touch that comment. Mr. Sandwell, greetings to you as always. Yes. What's good, Godric? It's a pleasure. Yes. Peanut Butter and Jealous should have the LAW Tag Team Champions. Let's talk about that for a second, because the Pattersons are the LAW Tag Team Champions, and obviously they're the only brother-sister duo to have those Tag Team Championships, and I mean, we'll certainly see coming up very soon if, they're going to continue to hold those championships. What's your thoughts on the Pattersons, by the way?
Well, here's a little known fact. I came up with Timmy Patterson.
Okay.
We were in the same training class. So he knows very well you should probably stay away from me.
Okay. Duly noted.
But knowing Timmy, he's so confident in himself. They're a great tag team together. I mean, who has better chemistry than people that grew up together, especially a sibling tag team?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah. But also, if they want to mess with the new religion, they probably don't want it. I'll just say that. They probably don't want to do that.
What do you think though about Miami Mental Institute? They're the number one contenders. What is your thoughts on, could they take the titles away from them, or you think that the Pattersons will continue to hold on to those titles?
Miami Mental Institute, well, crazier things have happened.
All right, fair enough. That's a great question. But, on Express Wrestling, let's talk about that for a few minutes. We'll get to some people here in the chat. I'm almost caught up to everybody. I really want to talk about Excel and Express Wrestling, because obviously Money Mark Media is co-sponsoring the show with Excel Wrestling here coming up on June 13th. We've talked a lot about it. Godric Samuel's in action against the Soul Taker. We've talked, to the heavens about Dave Jamieson and the artist formerly known as Fuego del Sol. And, let's talk about this because you and I have talked a lot about this, and I'm really rejuvenated with Express Wrestling now because of this whole Excel Wrestling. And let's talk about June 13th and what we can expect going forward now with Excel Wrestling.
Okay, so basically, Excel pretty much is an offshoot of Express Wrestling to where, we're getting to the point now where we're mending a lot of, because everybody, and I'm sure too, Express for a while there had kind of a not so good reputation. Things kind of went kind of south for a while. And then about 3 years ago, I took over with the booking. And ever since then, I've been trying really, really hard to repair that.
Mm-hmm.
But when I came in, I had never been a booker before when I came in.
Wow.
So I learned a lot just from going through all that. And as I learned, I was like, what would really help here is to get all of these people who said they would never come back here again to feel like, no, I'm being serious, like to feel like, come back and actually work here again. So, I really tried hard to mend those fences. So like now we've got a lot of people that want to come and want to work with us again. And I'm so happy for that. But also we want to be able to have like a place like Excel where we can help develop some of the trainees as they're coming up.
Sure.
And also have guys come in that we can take a look at about possibly being on, future Express shows. So, this way we have more room to go because we can only do about 7 to 8 matches on a show comfortably before you kind of burn out an audience, right?
Sure. Yep.
So, there's only so much I can do on each show. So now I have a secondary show that I can put on where I can get a good look at everybody and see where they need to improve or if they're ready to be on a bigger show or if there's like, a storyline that I didn't get to finish at Express, we could do it at Excel. Stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's definitely an offshoot. And again, I feel like, we're in a good position where like we can take guys who need developed and just get them there. You know what I mean? And I just want this to be a place where everybody can come work and learn and yeah.
You said something interesting, and I want to go back to that, which will kind of tie into what you just spoke of. You obviously were a wrestler. You obviously have experience in learning what got you into this. You become an in-ring competitor, but then you have to make this transition to become somebody that's getting involved in putting these shows together, which is a very difficult and complicated thing. I say all the time, one of the things I always want to never be involved in is, who wins and who loses. And you're that person. And like, talk to me about that adjustment and how difficult that was, because I think that that's just one of the most difficult positions anyone can be in wrestling, in my opinion, is that person that decides who wins and loses.
Well, I I had been in the business for 9 years. I came in 2008. That was my first wrestling match was in West Virginia for what is now WVWF.
Yes.
On October 4th of 2008. The reason I remember that is because it was my dad's birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, but so with that, things started to happen. I have a ailment, and it's called CMT or Charcot-Marie tooth. And it was something I was apparently born with. And as I got older, it progressed. And it got to a point where I couldn't even walk anymore. So like I actually left the business in 2017 and didn't come back until 2001 or 2021. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was like, wow, we really went backwards.
Well, listen, I have this really close friend who's a physicist. She made me this time machine. It was crazy. No, but no. So that affected everything. I wasn't able to kind of like stand for long periods of time, and So I knew it was over, and I got out of the business in 2017. And then a friend who had been in the business just as long, and we were friends that we knew from high school.
Sure.
He's a wrestler by the name of J. Rue.
Okay. Yeah, I heard the name.
He brought me to PWX with him for a show as his manager. He was like, dude, it would be really fun if you were, at least a manager. And I never really gave it a thought. I always kind of was like, maybe that would be fun, but I just never did it. Well, he
Sure.
was like, let's bring you in. And we did this spot where like I was just on the outside, just being goofy with the fans and whatnot. And the guy came out who he was facing, and he's like getting in my face, and I punched him in the crotch. All right. So from that point, I was like, this was a lot of fun. I got a huge pop when I did it, or got a huge reaction from the crowd when I did it. And just from there, I was like, you know what? Let's keep doing this. Let's see where we can go. And then Pav Novak, who's
Yes.
on the LAW.
Yes, a man that I think he tagged me and eventually does want to come on Sportswire, so stay tuned for that. Yeah.
Right on. He talked me into this idea he had for a faction called the Genophage.
Yes.
And he was like, would you want to come in and be the manager at PWX for that? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And then during that time, the guy who was booking at PWX was like, hey, I really like your mind, because we would always pitch him ideas and stuff like that. And he was like, I really like your mind. How would you like to be on the booking committee? And I was like, I've never done that before, but I'll give it a go. And then as time went on, I started, just learning everything about how to put together a match, who works well with who, what's, never do anything without having a reason for it, never book just a random on-off match, how to build to something. All of that stuff started to make sense and click in my head. And after a couple years, I started to get to a point where we were starting to bring in a bigger audience finally. So from there, we just went ahead and started gaining some traction, started getting some bigger names in there, thanks to a couple other guys. But I did get to the point where they made me the head booker, but also I do have a team there. Like just recently, actually, Timothy Titan is joining the booking crew at Express for the women's division, because the hardest thing to do with the reputation that PWX had was to get women wrestlers to come in.
Yeah, that was, I have heard that as well. That's something that I think you guys are about to change already. So that's a good point.
Yeah, we just want everybody to know that, like, we're changing it, and we want to make this a safe place for everybody to work. We don't want to come in with the idea of trying to eliminate competition. I don't see it as competition. I want everybody to have multiple places to work so they learn. And I want this place to be a safe place for everybody to come in, hone their craft, and also have fun, because it's wrestling. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah, and I think that it gives an opportunity for maybe those in Express to get more reps, to get more opportunities.
Exactly.
I think it's going to give also the fans of Express more wrestling. It gives them an opportunity at 2125 Beacon Street, McKeesport, Pennsylvania. I've got these addresses memorized. Like I tell people all the time, I remember my home address is 422 78th Street, Brooklyn, New York, 01209. My current address, 952 Clove Road, Staten Island, New York, 10301. And now I remember 325 7th Street, the Richardson Building in Parkersburg, West Virginia, now 2125 Beacon Street in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. They're going to be like, when I'm dead, that's my 4 addresses. I'm going to like go to my grave with those 4 addresses. The rest of them, it doesn't matter. So I've got to memorize. I mean, I've talked about 2125 Beacon Street now for going on 9 months. So, I mean, I've had, a lot of these guys on, but I really think it's a great thing that we're going to see. And we're going to see a lot of these talent coming here. I mean, Brohemoth and Jace Carr in a hardcore match. We've talked about certainly Godric and the Soul Taker. We've talked about Dave James. So I really think what you're doing here is really going to be great for everybody in wrestling. And I think it's exciting to see now Express Wrestling, more Express Wrestling. And that's, for the fans, a huge victory, because over 30 plus years, Express Wrestling has been around. So there's an appetite, there's a support, and there's a want for more wrestling, and you're going to get it because of you and others that are playing a huge role in it.
Yeah, and I hope it works out that way. I hope it ends up being a positive experience for everybody. The last thing I want to do is make anything negative. And again, like I said, we had that stigma for a while, but I think now, as long as we keep working at it, making it a safe place for everybody to work, we'll get more people to come in, and maybe even try to do some partnerships with other companies in the future. You know what I mean? I'd love to do that. I'd love to work with other Pittsburgh companies, and just yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Pittsburgh wrestling scene again, the heritage, the legacy of it is just it speaks for itself. And we have a big show coming up here in 12 days. First of all, it's Excel Wrestling, and it's presented also by Money Mark Media. Timothy Titan will be here next Monday for it. He'll be here at 9:30, and you're going to see the Soul Taker, who was doing the weather not too long ago, was tag team with Savio Vega. He's tag team with Godric Samuel in the past, and now he's wrestling. I'm going to see Brohemoth and Jace Carl. Almost the battle of Indie Vision podcast guests. I mean, somebody put that together, wink and a nod. And you're going to see, obviously, the match everybody's talking about. What a way to start, by the way, you guys to have a show with what a bang to have these big shows. And Freddie versus Jason, by the way, with more on the card to be announced by next Monday. I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better start, I think, right now.
I mean, yeah, we were very fortunate to get a hold. Well, I should say Timmy was very fortunate when he got a hold of KJ, and KJ said he would like to come in. So, and then we racked our brain for a little bit, and Timmy was like, "Man, could you imagine like KJ Orso and Day Jameson?" And then when Timmy mentioned it today, Day was like, "That's a dream match for me." So we were like,
Yeah.
"Then we have to do it. We have to." Like dream matches in historically always seem to be some of the best matches because these.
Absolutely. This it's like a big fight feel. There's a hype to it. There's excitement, and I think that Dave Jameson's ready for it. I think what he's done these last several months. I said it. He was here on Sportswire like 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, 3, 4 weeks ago, and I noticed what a dramatic improvement in his mic skills, his ring skills have increased, his visibility's increased, and I think he's ready for this. It's a match that he's talked about for a long time. We've seen the lead up into it. We've been a part of that here, and I think it's just going to be great. And we have another show on June 21st where Godric Samuel, by the way, Express. I mean, Pepper Pride's going to be a part of that. That's going to be a huge match. We're talking about the women. And Godric Samuel's wrestling the NWA Midwest champion in the El Jaguar, Dante Casanova. I mean, boy, unbelievable. I mean, what's going to be? I mean, I'm hyped for that. I got to tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was you got Joshua Kavad, you've got Godric Sandwell, and you've got Dante Casanova in one match. You have two of the biggest names right now in Pittsburgh professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
And adding one of the biggest names in the whole United States, possibly the world, with Dante Casanova. It's insane to think about it. At least the best in the Midwest, right? Because he has that title.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
We were talking about Casanova on Tuesday's show and where he's gone and just the different people he's wrestled and the amount of championships. Then you throw Joshua Kavad into this, and you throw what he's done here. I mean, that it's just I don't know if you could ask for a better match anywhere right now in the Pittsburgh wrestling circuit. I mean, it's going to be that good of a match. I mean, to me, that's a kind of match people would pay hundreds of dollars for. You're talking about Dante Casanova, you're talking about Joshua Kavad. I think Godric Samuel right now. I mean, Godric's here every month. I mean, everybody, not just in LAW, not just in Excel, not just in Express, they rave about Godric. So you put this match together, and it's for an NWA championship. We think about the heritage of the NWA. We think about Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh is such an historic wrestling town. It's a legacy wrestling town. We think about Shane Douglas, we think about Kurt Angle, we think about Corey Graves, we think about Bruno Sammartino, all the past and present Pittsburgh greats. And you're seeing that heritage continue coming up here on June 21st, Bad Reputation, Express Wrestling, and like we said, a triple threat match for the NWA Midwest Championship.
Yeah, and it's you know what, and the NWA has been very, very generous when it comes to trying to help us out. A few months back, we had the NWA television title defended on a show too with Isaiah Prince and
yes, I know Isaiah.
oh, okay, yeah. So like, yeah, so I mean, like they've been very good to us. Again, we have PB Smooth as
Yep.
well returning this show, who's a part of NWA, I believe Wild, right? Is he
Yeah.
on NWA?
I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
so.
Yeah, my apologies. I do not get to watch a lot of wrestling. With
You know what? You should. You know what? You, Mr. Hart, you should laugh at this because this came up a few days ago on Sportswire. It came up Friday, and we were talking kind of the same thing. And I said on the air because I know my chat here and everybody going to probably say you're nuts to say this, admit this on the air. But speaking of that, I haven't watched Raw on Netflix once the entire year. I don't even have Netflix, so like I understand when you're wrapped up into this world, whether it's where you are in Pittsburgh or here on Sports with a different guest. Like I'm not sitting there and watching every segment on Raw. I'm just, I'm not doing it. There are podcasters, and God bless them that they're going to be into that. They're going to ask their guests about it. But, we're here about this is what you're here on this platform. I'm here to talk about these companies. These are the companies to me that what it's all about. Indie wrestling, underground wrestling. To me, this is, pro wrestling. This is what it to me is about. This is why all wrestling matters. And this is where I want to be. I don't want to be anywhere else. So I understand.
Yeah, and like to me, there's a big difference between what you see on Netflix and what you see on the indies. For instance, there's a reason they call it sports entertainment, not wrestling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what we like is professional wrestling.
Absolutely. My buddy Chris Urban wrestled yesterday in New Jersey, and he's a pro wrestler. I mean, trained by Amazing Red, and makes the trip from Brooklyn to go into Jersey and wrestle those indie towns, and that's pro wrestling. That's what I'm about. I'm about pro wrestling, and I think you guys do an amazing job with that. And I'm excited to see some of the talent here on this platform. Obviously Dave Jameson's now back in Express Wrestling. That's a big thing. That's a big storyline in the future. Peanut Butter and Jealous are back together again. I mean, I think some really good storylines ahead here coming up with Express and Excel Wrestling, and I'm excited about.
Yeah, not to mention, we have the Degenerates, who are the tag team champions, and at Berg Brawl back in April, they attacked Dakota Orion. So now Dakota Orion's calling us at the office and saying, "Hey, I got a partner, and I want to take on the Degens for the PWX Heritage Tag titles." And I'm like, "Who's your partner?" And he says to me, "Don't worry about it. I got this." And then he hangs up the phone. Like, I don't know who he's bringing, but I'm excited. Seriously excited to see, because Dakota is such an amazing talent.
Yep.
Ricky Roca, Michael Griff, the tag champions are amazing. Like, who is he going to bring to challenge those two? Because they have been absolutely killing it in the tag division. So, yeah.
I think that's another reason why you have a chance.
Yep.
Go to 2125 Beacon Street, McKeesport, Pennsylvania. You got two chances, June 13th and June 21st. What better way to spend a night with the family? I just saw Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. I spent more than double what you're going to spend to go to a pro wrestling show. This is where pro wrestling is about. This is where wrestling lives. You're going to see some of the very best. You've got them all here. You've got two chances now. Two is better than the price of one. Tommy Horror is one of those reasons why. Let's get to some more people in the chat because I want to talk about a few other things with you. Yes, if she wants to say hello to you, thank you very much for that.
Princess,
and also, Kevin wants you to tell everybody about how you fell into his arms.
One day we were coming out of the Express Wrestling building, and there's like a little lip there on the end of the sidewalk that I always roll over to get out. I always tell people I don't need help. I'm fine. And I'm rolling back in my chair, and I must have hit like the edge weird or something, and I just started falling. And Kevin from Ring Crew was right next to me, and he just had to grab me and catch me as I started falling to the concrete. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Kevin. Appreciate that.
Well, we got that live, so I guess I guess Kevin will elaborate more on that on June 26th, and I think that's his birthday that day. By the way, he's here on his birthday. Can you believe that? I think it's his birthday that day.
Yeah, he's old. Don't let him tell you otherwise. He's 62.
No, he's not getting his social
He's
security.
100% 62 years old. I promise.
Well, we'll find out then. And when Tommy glazed lovingly into your eyes when you caught him, and that's what we just talked about.
It's
And
not what
that's
happened. I
and
may have
speaking
flailed.
and by the way, speaking of people that fell by the hands of La El Shaddai last Monday there in Parkersburg, Mr. Michael McMoney, 2008 in West Virginia, a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Yes, that was
Michael McMoney was also in my training class, so that's what
well.
he's looking to.
And
Yeah.
Michael McMoney's back on Sportzwire the following week. I think he's here the 13th. I think he's here the 13th. And Tommy completely glossing over his time as a plague of Corvus.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, well then I'll go forward. Obviously Courtney's back at it with that name you don't want to be referenced as. Thank you, Courtney, I suppose. Hello to Michael. Hello to Omen. Yes, thank you for that. At the time, still glad you found me despite our current transgressions.
Yeah. He always gives me credit for putting him in the ring for the first time, because I don't know. Here's a fascinating story about Godric is that when he first came to PWX, he was a referee.
Yes, I've had him on. I think that came up before here. He's been here a lot.
We didn't know that he could wrestle, and then one day he was like, "Can I work out with the guys in the ring?" We were like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And he just started doing like stuff that most of them couldn't even do. We were like, "Why are we? Why is he a referee? He can't be a referee anymore." Look at that.
You know what? Sometimes that works out that way. Listen, I mean, I know people. There was a guy in the UK, and it was Scott Bell was a referee and could wrestle a bit. So there's some people. Some people have that well-balanced training and that natural abilities. And Godric is one of those guys, regardless of whether he can win the LAW championship, has natural abilities to be out there. And that's why he's got some big matches coming up. And I'm very excited to talk about them. And yes, hello. You are doing very good up there. Yes, you are. And hit the sub button further for the Indie Vision podcast. I'd appreciate that. And he feels 62. So yeah, you're halfway there, but we'll make it, I swear. But I do want, I know you're gonna get, I know you're gonna get mad, but I'm gonna give you something because I want to talk about music before I transition back into final things. But I do things differently. I know you guys are you smarter than a fifth grader? You have your way of doing things, but I'm different. And it's Tommy Holiday here on Sportswire Radio. There you go. Congratulations. Listen, I know you got big awards before. I know you had 700 people on a live on Facebook watching your music. And I know you've done other things, but, this is my platform. And, you're going to get something whether you like it or not. And congratulations. It's Tommy Holiday.
I appreciate you. Yeah, thank you so much. I thought for sure, I was like, there's no way he's gonna do that to me. This is my first time coming on. Like,
well, if I put you in the Hall of Fame, you'd really want to kill me. You might get Lyle. Should I knock on my door? Because I gave you my address. I mean, that's how confident I gave out my address to where I live.
Yourself, pal.
Yeah, but I wanted to at least give you the date. Next time, I'll put you in the Hall of Fame. Next appearance, next month, you'll go in the Hall of Fame. But
nope, I retire.
Well, Mark Farner, I'm putting in the Hall of Fame, but that's different. Mark Farner, it's like, yes, please, Mr. Farner, come still do my interview, but that's okay. But it is Tommy Holiday. But speaking of things that I really want to talk about with you, almost as much as anything else for tonight, and there's a lot I could talk to you for hours, but I'm really fascinated about your career in music because I've heard you talk about it. Other people have talked about it here on the platform. Obviously, you have a band Alive by August, and I'll put some links up there for people to check out some of the music. And you have a fascinating life because you're this guy now behind the scenes. You get involved in putting together these wrestling shows, which again, I think is the one thing I want to avoid. You've had a career in the ring. You have a career managing, obviously, with La El Shaddai, but also you have a music career, really successful one, which has brought you to a lot of different places. And I'm curious because I asked Sammy Nothing, my guest on Friday, the same question. How did you juggle wrestling and your love of music? And were they always at the same time two things you wanted to do at once?
So it all started as a kid. My dad was a guitar player. Okay. And a musician himself. And I don't exactly remember what age I was, but I remember there was always a old no-name guitar in my room. Yeah. And like I didn't really like mess with it too much until like I got older, like I want to say like 10 or 11.
Okay.
And I started kind of messing around with that guitar and I taught myself how to play.
Wow.
like my dad, like even though he played, I never asked him to help. He didn't even know that I was trying to learn. I didn't tell him. I was too
Really?
embarrassed. Yeah. So like, and then one day he heard me playing and he was like, "Hey, come down. We'll play together." I didn't know you could play. I was like, not very good, a little bit. But anyway, so when I was like 17, I got together with a bunch of guys from high school. You know, the typical story. We started
Yeah.
playing shows. There was this band that went to high school with me, and two of the guys were my friends. Shout out to Eric and Dan. How you guys doing? Um, but they were playing in a band called Mind Stab at the time,
Okay.
and there was a venue. I grew up in a town called Charleroi, Pennsylvania, which I'm sure a lot of you have heard that name from President Trump lately. But
Yeah.
that's yeah,
Yeah.
that's where I grew up. I went to Charleroi High School, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, but Charleroi was kind of like a hotbed for touring bands to come through for a while there.
Really?
So yeah, so like they had this place. It was the Charleroi VFW. In fact, that's actually where I met Timmy Titan for the first time,
Oh wow. Okay.
because he was a musician as well. He
Yeah,
doesn't
I
like to talk
think you
about it.
mentioned that briefly here, Timmy. Timmy Titan
Yeah.
mentioned. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he would call us and be like, "Hey, come play my show." But the band I was in at the time was called Meaning in the Static.
Okay.
And that was the one that like started taking off. That's the one that ended up playing in 2008 at Mr. Small's Theater with the Misfits. And
Wow.
yeah, and then we got to do some touring for like a pre-famous My Chemical Romance. We did
Yep.
like 4 or 5 dates with them on the East Coast.
Wow.
Avenged Sevenfold like a bunch of times, so much so that you know uh, we became really pretty good friends with these guys. But like it was all like pre MTV and stuff like that. It was just guys
Yeah, I
that
mean, Avenged Sevenfold took a while to break. I mean, remember Backcountry, and they took them a while though to break. Avenged Sevenfold, it was like a while. It didn't, the big number one albums didn't come till later on. Sure, I'm very familiar with them.
but I'm not gonna lie. I don't when it comes to the Misfits playing with them at Mr. Smalls, I don't think we earned that. I literally begged that promoter to put us on that show.
But you know
So
what?
I
That's
mean,
sometimes it's who you know. Sometimes, I mean, you
yeah,
got to talk about that first. I mean, the Misfits are like legendary. You talk about an
yeah,
influential band. I see. I saw the shirt. Listen, I mean,
yeah.
Metallica was influenced by the Misfits. I mean, Jason Newsted always wore the Misfits shirt. I mean, the Misfits. Your wrestling, WCW, there was a tie to that. Danzig. My mother covered Danzig songs. It was Mother and what was it, Dirty Black Summer. I mean, so like I know this band. I know what the style is. So I just think that's so fascinating that you got that opportunity. And I mean, what were the guys like?
So at the time it was Jerry Only, Des
Yep.
Cadena, and Robo
Okay.
at that time. So they were just doing the three-piece thing.
Yep.
Mike had already left. I've done some things with Michael Graves as well, actually.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I know
but
Danzig's been out of there for decades. Yeah, I knew that,
yeah,
obviously.
yeah.
But
Well, they were the first band I remember hearing in my life. My cousin, my two cousins who I was very close with, they were very big into the punk scene.
yeah.
And I
We were
remember
talking about
them
on Friday
showing
show.
me.
It's so funny. You just left right off with Sammy Nothing. He spoke about like we talked about the Sex Pistols, we talked about Iggy, we talked about the Ramones. We left right off. That's what we were talking about on Friday.
Oh, right on. Okay, yeah. So like the Misfits were the ones that stood out to me. I remember them. I remember like Operation Ivy, but Social Distortion is
Yeah,
my
I,
probably
I, I
second
remember.
favorite
Yeah,
group.
I remember them very well. Yeah.
Yeah, but like the Misfits were always like the first band I ever remembered hearing in my entire life. I remember it was "Die Die My Darling." That's
Yes.
the song
I
I
Metallica
remember.
covered it. Die, die,
Yeah,
die, my darling. Yep, I know it. Very well.
yeah. So like when they got back together in '95 and started doing stuff again, I was so elated because like I only had that back catalog. I was born in
Yeah.
'82, so
Okay.
like yeah,
Took you a
they
while.
by
Yeah.
the time I was old enough to realize what was going on, they were already broken up.
Yeah.
So like and then they came back in '95. I saw them on my birthday actually in 2000
Wow.
at a little place called Club Laga in Pittsburgh. and that's when they still had Dr. Chud and Michael Graves singing for them. So it was like the newer Misfits, but I never got to see, and until this day, I've still never got to see them with Danzig, and I want to go
I
really
know
bad.
Danzig is like he's like he's a lot of people have said that he's a hard guy to get along with. I've seen he's a big he used to be a big topic on a site blabbermouth.net, which I've been featured on 3 times, and he
Nice.
doesn't get the most glowing reviews to work with. Unfortunately, he's one of those kind of guys, Danzig. So it's what it is, I guess.
Yeah, I've never got to meet Danzig, but I've gotten to meet all the other guys so far. Robo was a big one for me. I always really enjoyed his drumming style. So
Yeah, they're great. Listen, definitely an influential, great band, local band, Jersey band. So definitely, I always feel the tie to them from that level. I'm curious about this because I ask other people this question, and I asked Sammy this, and I've had musicians on that you played at a high level, so you understand this. So, what is the similarities and differences for you being a musician that had the success, and then being in wrestling to where you are today? What do you feel are some of the similarities and differences?
well, I'll tell you. Okay, so the way it worked out was I left music completely when I decided to go after the wrestling dream.
Okay.
So I got out of it completely, and I kind of kicked myself in the butt quite quite a lot over that. But I wanted to be home more. I had met this girl, and she had a daughter, and it became a whole thing. I
Well,
wanted
you
to.
laugh. My dad was in a band, and he had sort of success. He used to always say, "I stopped playing because you were born." So I understand. It made me feel bad for a long time. I was born, so I understand.
So that little girl is not biologically my daughter, but she's
Okay.
still my daughter
Yeah,
to this day.
I get
Even though
that.
me and mom are no longer together or anything, but like
I get that.
I wouldn't trade it for a thing.
Sure.
To me, I did the right thing.
Yeah,
Um,
family's tough. When you're a musician, being on the road,
yeah,
it's you can't have a family. It's one of those things. I
yeah,
hear people talk about it all the time. I had Doug Pinnick at King's X on. He's in his 70s, and they're still touring a lot. It's You're a musician to make money. You got to be out there and play a lot. It's not easy for sure.
right on. But back to the question, like one thing I did notice coming into wrestling from music was that I had a good idea on what would make a crowd react and how. So
Oh, okay.
there was that
Good
kind of
answer.
transitioned over.
That's interesting because you wouldn't. I have had people on, they haven't really said that, but that's a good. Not because he's a musician, you know what works. You know if you're playing a set and somebody or many in the audience aren't feeling a song or two, you're gonna make that adjustment, and you're gonna be able to have those things. And that's a great point. I even heard people talk about that. You know a lot how to feed off the crowd, and it's very similar in that sense. Being a musician, the crowd's everything in wrestling. You got to have that crowd. And I was curious also before I do transition back. I mean, of any memories with Avenged Sevenfold, what was it like playing with them? I mean, they're a band I do know very well. Was there anything that stood out with them?
Um,
That
that's a
you can
good.
tell on the air. Please, anything. Don't say anything that you can't say because I will. Like I said, because you never know. I may get the band on the platform. So tell anything, any good memories, please. Good memories.
Yeah, no, I got one good one at least. With a couple of the guys from Avenged and Mike Hem. Every town we went to, we were all kind of like the mall rat type, and we'd have to visit a mall every
Yeah.
time.
Okay. That's a good story. That's a good story.
So there was that.
That's a good one. Oh, that's a good.
Yeah, that's about all you're gonna
That's
need
a good one. That's
to
good enough
talk
for
about.
me. Visiting malls. I think that's a thing for people in different places. I don't go to the mall often, so I think that's a good story. And I think that's great. Listen, I just think it's so fascinating. Obviously, there's music out there. And if you, by the way, you want to at least catch a live by August. You want to
Mhm.
catch some of that content. I saw you played in front of like 700 people on a Facebook Live once. And what's this story, by the way, that Kevin had for the audience about you playing at a furniture store?
Oh, one time when we first started this adventure with Alive by August, my buddy owned a furniture store out in it's a suburb of Pittsburgh. I can't remember which
Okay.
No, but like we were at the. He was like, come into the furniture store, and you guys can play because it was like community days. People were walking up, trying to
Oh,
check out the sales and
okay.
stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like
yeah.
I was like, okay, and we get there, and nobody came in. It
Oh
was just
well.
Kevin from Ring Crew. He was the only
Well, at
one.
least Kevin was there. Listen,
Yeah,
Kevin was the show. He was the crowd. I mean, Kevin was. That's why he's Kevin from Ring Crew. That's it's
yeah,
a great story. Kevin definitely has, a great memory in that. And
yeah.
we also
And
got a band member banned on Facebook after a live stream of a jam session. What happened there? I mean, what's that about? If you
I
can't tell it
can't
on
tell
air,
that
don't do it.
story without revealing secrets.
Yeah, all right, we'll leave that at that. Obviously, Kevin maybe will share it on June 26th. That might be a reason why to tune in. Daniel Tafua says, then at Club Octane,
Uh-huh.
Taurus's group performed. Isn't that right, Mr. Horror? Plus, you're also my producer.
I do know your producer. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. And I know
Yeah.
that's interesting.
So the producer he goes with, I'm blanking on his name right now, but he's the sweetest guy, and he runs a recording studio down in Charleroi. And
Okay.
I feel bad. He brought him up, so I don't want to not talk about him, but I'm blanking on his name right now. I'm
Well,
terrible.
let me bail you out here for a second. Let me ask you the one other question, and before actually, I'm gonna actually really bail you out. C note.
There it is. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Cino, shout out to Cino.
Yeah.
Let me bail you out though. Let me ask you though something. You obviously have a knack for talent in wrestling. You've also been a very successful musician. Do you ever want to go back and do producing or anything? And obviously you've played with some very big bands. You understand what it takes to be out there in the music world. Is there ever a desire to go back or do things there to help other up and coming artists?
Tom, you ask a lot of the good questions.
I've had, like I said, who's been on my platform. That's why you get them here. It's what we do.
I I just recently back in December completed an 18-month course in music production.
Okay.
So now I'm working towards the internship hours to get my degree in audio
Nice.
engineering. So
I have a friend that just completed that course. My friend
okay.
Siraj Solanki, who though he's not listening to this. I think he's never going to do a single thing with it. He doesn't look like it. I think you'll do just fine with the audio engineer degree.
Well, if you listen to the Alive by August stuff,
I've listened to a few tracks.
I recorded all that right here where we're talking. That was all recorded
Well,
right here.
music is such a different. It's there's no more. Hey, I need to go. Listen, I'm in New York City. People used to go to the record plant. People used to go to all these. You don't need to go and spend $1,000 an hour on a record studio. Everybody's got Pro Tools. That's it. It's a
Yeah.
different. I have to book studio time. You don't need that anymore. You have your phone. You have an app. You download it, or you buy the software for $100, $200, and that's it. It's such a different. Listen, it's like this with podcasting. You guys obviously are doing this now. And I started 6.5 years ago, and I had to have a big sound mixer, a soundboard, Skype. And now I buy the StreamYard. And I mean, yes, I got big lighting. I paid a lot of money for the lighting, but it's a different world. So, yeah, being in a band, it's not what it used to be. Everybody had to go into a big studio. If you were a band, they had a big budget for the record because you had to spend studio time to produce. I was hearing a producer because I interviewed the band Kicks, who's a band from Maryland, not too far from you guys, the Pennsylvania, West Virginia area, and Brian Damage Foresight. And, the producer of their big hits, Bo Hill, became more of a mixer engineer because producers don't make the kind of money they used to back in the day. When you made the big records in the 80s and the 90s, the Brendan O'Briens of the world who made the Soundgarden records, Stone Temple Pilots, think of anybody else that was out there, Tom Werman, all the big names, Bob Rock. It's not what it used to be because everybody can just record in their phone, record in their laptop, so you can do it on your own. So you'll be great. I'm sure you'll be a great audio engineer, and the best is yet to come.
Yeah, the one thing that really changed the game really is honestly like digital media.
Yeah.
Like there's no physical sales anymore. So people don't realize artists don't make anything when it comes to their recorded music anymore. The money's made touring, merchandise,
yeah,
things like that. So if you think like you're going to go ahead and record an album and then make a bunch of money off of it, you're just not.
No, nobody's listen. Ghost just had the #1 record a few weeks ago, and they sold 86,000 records.
Right.
86, which used to be back in the day, you sold 86,000 copies in the first week. The record label would be okay with it. Maybe you just scraped the top 10. In some years, you just scraped the top 20. Now, 86,000 records. That was the first record in rock in like 5 years. I think since Tool's last record to hit #1. Nobody sells records anymore. People now. You sell 10,000 records the first week in the album sales chart. You're in the top 10. Billy Idol just came out with a new album and sold like 8,000 in the first week, and he made the top 10 in album sales. It's a different world. You had the big budgets years ago. You sell 500,000 copies, you were a flop. Now today, you sell 500,000 records. It's like selling 2, 3, 4 million. It's not. Right. It's all about the touring, and
the money's made through, like I said, the digital and the physical stuff. But the physical stuff, vinyl, is what makes you the money.
Vinyl has made a big comeback. I even hear that cassettes are slowly making a comeback again. I don't know if it'll work, but I hear because people want nostalgia. But vinyls, to me, I think vinyls worked because there was something about putting on the turntable, opening it up, the needle. There's a sound what you get hearing a vinyl versus a CD, a cassette. There's obviously the recording. It's a different type of people here in the chat want wrestling. We'll get to wrestling in a minute, but just in terms of when you hear something on vinyl versus CD versus cassette, if you still have that, and even on YouTube. I heard it was Sammy Hagar spoke about this in an interview. Sammy Hagar spoke about this, and there's going to obviously there's a totally different sound. That's why vinyl is actually made a really big comeback. Vinyl's everybody has vinyl. There's something about having a physical thing and putting on the turntable with the needle going around. But musically, that sound, it's a two-sided vinyl. I mean, that's why I think it came back. I don't know. I think it came, it was a big thing. Everybody wants to collect vinyl. And I actually have, and he says, Sammy can't drive 55. Yes, I actually have that on vinyl, by the way. I have it on vinyl. I don't have a record player, but I have it. Yes, I have Sammy Hagar's VOA Voice of America album, and he collects vinyl. Well, Kevin, I feel like is going to be talking a lot about music. I'm sure we'll talk about Grand Funk Railroad and everybody else been on here. Stone Temple Pilots. And God rest his soul, Scott Weiland, although I still don't know why Stone Temple Pilots is continuing, but different show for a different time. I'm smelling like a rose. Yeah, listen, they were definitely, a really good band. Definitely, they were a great band. But, all right, so obviously I talked a lot about a lot of different things. But, so obviously we got into LAW. I want to go back to that. So Future is La El Shaddai. He's just going to sit back and wait for somebody to challenge him. That's what I gather at.
I'm not going to say he's just going to sit back. I mean, he's going to provoke people like he always does. But I'm just saying there's going to be more people coming through, and Godric just needs to understand that he's not the center of attention. Shaddai is.
Well, Godric didn't win. I mean, Godric did not win. I mean, so theoretically, it happened. He got his second shot, and did it bother you that everybody swore up and down Godric was winning that match? Courtney was here, Titan was here at the time, McMoney was here, Tafua was here. Everybody, it seemed, said in almost unanimous form, Godric was gonna win that match, and yet he didn't. Did that bother you, Mr. Shaddai?
I wouldn't say it exactly bothered me or anything, but if we're going to be completely honest, there was a part of me that, when they were saying that, it started to bring on a little bit of doubt. I know how good Godric is, but once the bell rang and I saw Shaddai, my nerves settled because I knew it wasn't going to be the outcome that everybody wanted.
Fair. He's the champion. Listen, he's the incumbent, and there's no question being the incumbent. He's had that experience. The run that he's been on certainly speaks volumes. But before I let you go, I do want to bring up Dave Jamieson one more time because you, for whatever reason, bring him up. Now, we know what he went through with Timothy Titan. He was here a few weeks ago on Sportswire, and he brought up Brohemoth. Obviously, there's some unfinished business there. We'll see what happens. But Dave Jameson, I mean, I would like to see that match, but I question Dave Jameson. You talked about people, right, that haven't been around. And Dave Jameson certainly has been around wrestling, but he's certainly getting his feet wet. We'll see. Maybe a match with the artist formerly known as Fuego del Sol, KJ Orso, could get him ready for that. But I don't know if Dave Jameson's ready for that yet. I don't know if he's ready for La El Shaddai. Am I wrong?
Well, nobody's ready for La El Shaddai.
No, but yes, but there's Dave Jameson who might be ready one day, but I don't think it's today. Almost the same with Godric, except Day hasn't done what Godric's done with Shaddai. If Godric got that close, I mean, I don't know. I think it's not yet for Day.
No, it's not yet for anybody. But he's got to defend the title every so often, or else he's not the champion.
Okay, so that's fair.
Got to do something. But at the same time, it's a lot of fun to watch these guys get a lot of fire and confidence, thinking I could beat him. I could beat him.
Yeah, a lot of guys tonight. I mean, I heard from, I don't know, a quarter of the LAW locker room tonight. I mean, there was a lot of people here. I mean, surprisingly, I didn't hear from Wyatt Black. Maybe it was just past his bedtime. Maybe he wasn't allowed.
Definitely past his bedtime, a little bastard.
I'm going to say no comment on that. I mean, he will eventually work his way back on the platform. But if you do want to see some previous content of LAW, before I ask you one more question, I have to do my due diligence. Why? Because LAW got one more subscriber tonight. And if they get one more, they get 160 subscribers. So you guys are slowly inching up the numbers. And I think when you first came on, LAW was at like 100 subs. Now we're at 159. So we're slowly building those numbers up. And speaking of people that are here for the first time, speaking of WVWF, they're here Thursday night, 10:30 p.m. Eastern time. A man that Michael McMoney and certainly Wyatt Black know very well, James Enoch, is here. James Enoch is going to be here on Sportswire. He has requested a microphone. He has requested an opportunity to talk. And he has a lot to get off his chest. He specifically told me he wants to talk, and he wants to talk about his plans, his future, and yesterday's show and Metal Mayhem. And I'm certainly looking forward to that. And I hope if you liked what you heard from Mr. Tommy Horror tonight, you'll tune in Thursday night. Also next Monday, 9:30 p.m. Yes, the aforementioned second man of your three-man booth of the Indie Vision podcast, Mr. Timothy Titan, also of Money Mark Media, is back once again. And Kevin from Ring Crew, June 26th. Michael McMoney will be here. And I'm sure Courtney will be in here between all those things. Let me ask you one more question. And I normally don't ask somebody of your stature this question, but because you are somebody that watches a lot of wrestling to put people on these shows, what advice would you give for an up-and-coming talent or somebody that's here tonight, right now, to maybe, I don't know, get themselves more opportunities or to get themselves in places that they would like to be that aren't currently? What advice would you give to anybody here right now?
One thing we used to do that used to get us a good bit of bookings, I was in a tag team called the TV Casualties, which is another Misfits reference, by the way.
Yeah.
One thing we used to do to get more bookings is, okay, so at that time, like, YouTube and things weren't as readily available. Obviously, I'm old. It is what it is. So to get more bookings, what we would do is we would show up, you want to go with your gear to shows, sit there and watch shows, observe people, pay to get in. Don't ever ask to get into these shows for free, okay? Like, if, buy a ticket, then offer to help set up the ring, put it down. That's the best advice you can do. A lot of times what we would do is we would go in, we would say, hey, if you would like to see what we can do, we will wrestle one match for free. If you like what you see, we'll discuss, monetary payment for the next time.
Right. I got the picture.
So, but the thing is, to make connections, to get your name out there, the young guys need to go help set up the ring, offer to help set up the ring, offer to help tear down, whatever you could do on the show. Hey, do you guys need help with security? Yeah, sure. It'll make them think of you. Then at that point, you can start bringing up, hey, I'm a trained wrestler. You know what I mean? Like, here's some of my footage. I can send it to you. I have a lot of guys come up to me during the shows who will say, "Hey, I wrestle, at so and so. What, do you think you could ever use me?" And I'll tell them, "Just send me some of your reels. But I appreciate you showed up. You've already done half the battle."
It's very similar. I used to cover a lot of basketball. I have a background in college basketball coverage, and I would go to the games. And then when I covered basketball, and a lot of people, when they were trying to make it in basketball or college basketball, they'd have to they'd make a mixtape. They send a mixtape. And then there's a famous story in music. John Bon Jovi, when he was coming up, even though his brother was Tony, different spelling name, and he was involved with the record plant. One of the things he used to do, kind of in a way similar to tearing down and setting up the ring, is he would help in the record plant, which was a famous, legendary place where all the great bands were there in Manhattan. It's a legendary place. He would actually just, help sweep the place. He would perform janitorial tasks. And in exchange, he got studio time. And that's how he got to be able to record the first, He's a Little Runaway. And he got that opportunity. People think, oh, well, his brother. Yeah, like you said, half the battle. But what he did was he was there, whatever task he could, to get himself the studio time, to put a band together, to get himself the opportunity to go on the radio. It's the same thing in wrestling. I've been doing this for years, and it's always something that I think is an important thing for anybody out there. But it's like anything in life. If you network and you say and do the right things, you'll get those opportunities. One final question for you. What makes a great talent from your vantage point, as a guy who has an eye for this? What makes a great talent?
Ooh.
I know I asked really tough questions. You'll never come back here. It was a horrible experience. I know. What can I tell you?
I don't think there's any kind of like magic formula for what makes a great talent. First and foremost, a lot of guys think, oh, I'm over with the crowd. That's not all of it. If you can get over with the crowd, that's step one. Step two, have a good look. And I'm not saying you have to be a bodybuilder or anything like that, but at the same time, you want to look the part.
Yeah. That's what Gary Wilf said on here. Gary Wilf said, you've got to be in shape. He was like, I asked him the same question. Like, you've got to be in shape. He was like, hit the gym. It was like, and you didn't even say anything else. Like, okay, it's a good point. I
think for me, the best advice I can give you is just make sure your conditioning is up, your cardio, everything, because there's a lot of movement. You want to be able to keep your air, because as you lose your air in a ring, you start to get a little more unsafe, to be honest.
I've heard UK guys talk about that here. When you're gassed and you can't do anything out there, you are actually hurting your opponent, because if you can't do anything in there, they have to basically get to the finish. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that.
Now, I'm very old school. To me, if you're a heel, play the heel in front of the fans. If you're a face, play the face. But do not stop playing that role until the show is over. It's just a little pet peeve of mine, because these people come to see the show. They want to suspend disbelief.
Right.
Don't for them by being a heel during the show, and then coming out in the middle of intermission and just being like, "Hey, nice to meet you."
Well, that's like if you go to a movie, right? You don't want the actors playing a role, right? You don't want them all of a sudden during the movie to say, "Hey, did nothing happen?" To me, it's the same way. You're doing something, you're playing something. Why go away from it? I mean, I don't know. People are just, I don't know.
I would have been absolutely upset had I, back in the day, gone to see Back to the Future and the guy who plays Biff came up to me and was very nice.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just watched Mission Impossible: Final Reckoning. If Gabriel all of a sudden was being nice to Tom Cruise's character Ethan Hunt when they're trying to kill each other over saving the world, I mean, I'd be like, well, I should leave the movie then. So no, I listen. Those are all great points, and obviously, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more of that here. Please support LAW, Legit Alternative Wrestling, on Facebook, also YouTube. They have an Instagram page. Check it out. Also, please support Express Wrestling. Thank you. Money Mark Media, Indie Vision Podcast. Hit the sub button for them on YouTube. Check them out on Facebook, Instagram. Please support all these programs. There's so many great ways to get in touch with Tommy And if you're out there, you want advice, or you want to go and be a part of LAW, watch the show and help out, whatever it is, Express Wrestling, Excel Wrestling, whatever it is, please go out and contact. Please support these companies. These are great companies. And I can't stress it up. To me, this is where wrestling lives. This is where wrestling is all about. Please support all these companies. It is truly about All Wrestling Matters here. And these are the companies that make it matter. 2125 Beacon Street, McKeesport, Pennsylvania, Excel and Express Wrestling. June 13th, June 21st. I am buying a ticket to June 13th, by the way. We have my buddy Silas Walker going. He's going on my behalf. Yes, I'm going to be able to tighten that money next Monday. I always support a wrestling show every month. I always do that. We have June 21st, Bad Reputations. We'll talk more about that. LAW, stay tuned to their page for more details. We'll talk more about that, I'm sure, in the coming days with Courtney and McMoney and everybody else. But it's time to give you the floor. I pass the baton to you. Any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to plug, share, or say? The floor is yours.
Anybody who came over from my links, please hit that subscribe button, because Tom is doing great things here at Sportswire Radio. So please support him as well. Thank you, everybody. I'm sorry, what's that?
I appreciate that. I mean, I really do appreciate that. Very nice of you.
I mean, I'm not just here to sell myself. Like I said, the more we work together, the more we network, the more growth we can have. We can get past that glass ceiling. You can only get yourself so far without networking.
I know that. Listen, I have 1,500 plus subscribers. It wasn't by my mutton chops and good looks. It was because the people were here. No, I agree with you on that. Thank you, though.
I disagree with you on that. I think it was, in fact, the mutton chops.
Maybe. We'll see about that. But, I mean, definitely. Please support all the companies. I appreciate those kind words. Anything else you want to say before we go?
No, just those two shows. Remember, July 13th. It's Friday. June 13th.
June 13th, June 21st.
2125 Beacon Street, McKeesport, Pennsylvania. Come see Excel. June 21st, come back the next week on a Saturday. See Express. And
I love it. Love it.
Yeah. And I think, and also if you found me from the Tom Bryce show here at Sportswire Radio, come up and say hello to me. Tell me that's where you heard it from. That way I can go back to Tom and say thank you.
Well, I think some of my chat did, my chats, some of them were here for you. Some of them, LAW usual. So it was a good mix. I mean, we definitely had a lot of people out there. I had a couple people message me on Facebook that shall name anonymous, that don't want to come in the chat, but watched because they just, they don't want to chat. I get that, a couple of people every day like that. But no, it was great. It was awesome. It was an absolute honor, sir, to have you. I thank you for all that you do for our sport. I thank you for all that you do for the music industry. And it's people like you that motivate me every day to go out there and be here on Sportswire. So I thank you for that. I thank you for the opportunities. I thank you for giving me the opportunity to cover Excel, Express, LAW. I look forward to more coverage of those wonderful companies in the coming days. And I hope that you won't be a stranger. Your cat will be a lot happier with my next intro. And we'll see you next month, hopefully here. Hopefully we'll see you next month. And thank you so much, and congratulations on all the success, and we'll see you soon.
Hey, thank you, Tom. Thank you so much. Have a great night. And also, see, people, I'm not such a bad guy.
Well, we'll have to say, think about the future and all of that. And that was for Tommy Horror here for the chat. That's what I want to say to him. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. My name is the Reverend Tom Bryce, your voice figuratively and literally with all music and wrestling matters. Please hit the sub button for LAW, the Indie Vision podcast. Check out Express, Excel Wrestling, Money Mark Media. Also, we'll be here tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern time with D Savage of Battlefield Pro Wrestling and 814 Wrestling. We'll talk about that. And I'll be here with the Eclipse from Tuesday and all the way to Arkansas. I'll have Arkansas wrestling coverage. But Thursday, James Enoch. Definitely very excited about James Enoch. And Timmy Titan's back once again next Monday because he does bring in the views. Yeah, I admit it. He brings in the views. Next Monday night, 9:30, he brings in the views. He does. And so does Michael McMoney. He's here that same week. But thank you, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. On the number one, Corporation, the Sportswire Radio with all music and wrestling matters. Thank you, everybody. See you tomorrow. Go follow LAW, Express, Excel Wrestling, Indie Vision Podcast, and Money Mark Media. We'll